Now, I just want to turn on to one other point, which is working capital is going to be absolutely key in terms of moving out of lockdown. Because my concern with a number of businesses is that they've used up large amounts of working capital already. And when we get out of lockdown, whether it's phased or more significant movement of restrictions, they will have a reduction in their working capital. Their debtor book may already be used up. They will, in many businesses, particularly with perishable stock, will have huge startup costs. They may well have used up their existing financing facilities. So the CBIL scheme may be particularly relevant for clients in that particular situation.
What about contracts? And does that sort of cut across contractual relationships? And the short answer to that is that it doesn't. The UK government hasn't imposed any changes to contractual relationships. So if you're in a contract and you can't perform because of COVID, you really need to look very carefully at the terms of your contract to see what you can do. Now, some jurisdictions like France have intruded and passed laws to say that in certain circumstances, there's a mandatory protection for certain parties to contracts. But that's slightly oddly possibly is not the case in the UK. And there are two principal contractual points just to make on that. The first is that a number of contracts have what we call force majeure clauses. And these are clauses designed to deal with the current situation, i.e. where something happens which is out of the control of the parties, they cannot perform the contract. And in that circumstance, the force majeure clause should kick in and provide relief to the parties when otherwise they would be in breach of contract.
But in the UK, employers have 4 options open to them when they're looking at their staff. The first is what I spend most time on, which is the furlough scheme, which is this new job retention scheme that's been put in place by the government, where staff aren't required to work, but they're kept on payroll and paid some of their wage. Then there's 2 things called short time working and unpaid layoff, which is either where employees have the number of hours they work reduced, and therefore they're paid less, or they're laid off for a period of time and they're not paid. And that's an existing right. But the warning there is if you don't already have it in your contract, then it's not something that you can use now. But if you have it, then you're absolutely entitled to use it during this time. And then the fourth is our the existing right to make people redundant, where there's a reduction in the level of work. And of course, lots of people aren't doing that because of the furlough scheme, but that is still an option available to people. And it might sadly be one that they start to use as the furlough scheme comes to an end, which it must do.